Ooh, where's that WD-40? Do you need a squirt today? Oh, we're so happy to see you. This is the launch of a brand new 4-part series for the month of May, and I'm super thrilled that I have a new collaborator joining my amazing enterprise. So this is another Savvy Social collab with me, Olivia, and my guest today, Talia Dashow. And I was instructed to pronounce her name in that way, or at least to remember.
Wow.
It was like writing a dash and then ow.
Not quite, but close.
Close. Yeah. I need practice. Awesome. So you're just tuning in. Please say hello in the comments. We're so excited for this. And, we'll get to the title in just a minute about what creativity is all about. And creativity is WD-40 for the soul. So that's why we've got our WD handy. Mine's a trial size version. But so let us know in the comments where you're watching us from. Jump in, feel free to join in the conversation, and also just be able to network, network within the comments. I feel like now in this new digital era that we're living in, how we network, how we build relationships has changed dramatically. And I know for me it has. I mean, even just to think back on how you and I met, Talia.
Yeah.
We met through networking. And so I want to hear from you in the comments where it is that you're networking. Are you networking in person? Are you back to doing that, in-person events in your community? Or are you still networking on Zoom online? And so if so, where are your networking activities? Let us know in the comments. And so Talia and I met through an event called Share Your Light Circle. So if you're looking for a networking event to go to, this is a great one. And for authors, speakers, and coaches who have a special message to share. And it's hosted by our dear friends, Steve Garvin and also Christine Goad. And so together, they are... Oh, look, we have our first comment. Hello, Imani. Imani is watching from Atlanta, Georgia. Awesome. Thank you, Imani. So nice to see you.
I've heard it pronounced both ways.
Yes. And so I got to meet her today because she applied to speak at my Sing Your Heart Song Summit. So it was so fun to know you. Yeah. So super excited. But yes, so where are you networking? And, Talia and I met through Share Your Light Circle. So this is a group that meets every Tuesday. So every Tuesday, I believe, at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. So if you're a coach, writer, speaker, looking just to find a supportive environment. Oh, Brayden! Braden, our dear friend Braden. Awesome. All the way from Mansfield, Texas. All right.
Awesome.
And so this is a great environment for you to explore your message, be with other creatives, I suppose, and, work on techniques, tips, tools, and strategies for enhancing your business. So that's Share Your Light Circle. So I just want to give a shout out to my colleagues, because if it wasn't for Christine and it wasn't for Steve, Talia and I would never have crossed paths. And so here we are.
And the lovely thing about Share Your Light Circle is that it's not just share who you are and move on to the next person. It's really a chance to get to know other people and learn, share the struggles that we're having and the joys that we're having and all of the parts of being in business and being creative and being a human being. It's all there, and it really helps deepen connections. So it's a lovely place to go and connect with people. And if it weren't for these digital online events, there's no way Olivia and I would have met, because we're on opposite sides of the country.
Oh, yeah, that's right. In like different time zones too. So very cool. Very cool. And another networking event that I would like to recommend, it meets the first Wednesday of every month. So it's really easy to remember. It's the first Wednesday of every month. It happens to be today. And unfortunately, it has a conflict with our show, so we're not able to attend it. But it's a fantastic community, and it's called Unleash Your Free Spirit. So I love, quirky names, and this was really one that stood out for me. And you can find these events on LinkedIn. So if you go to the event tab and type in Share Your Light Circle or type in Unleash Your Free Spirit, this is run by Ginny Jolly and Judy Feldhausen. And these ladies do a fantastic job of hosting and they bring in some really fun speakers, and they really do a nice job of like creating breakout rooms. So that way, like Talia said, you really get to know an individual. It's just not like you go in there and then you leave. It's an opportunity to build relationships and have like the meaningful conversations. So I think that's really important when you're looking for a networking event, like some sense of community and continuity, right? Or even after. All right. So Tally, do you want to tell them how you came up with this idea that creativity is WD-40 for the soul?
Well, I've been creative all my life, but I don't always know how to what to do about it. And I've tried, I've tried for decades to figure out what I want to do when I grow up, and this has just been a really long process trying to figure out who am I, what do I do? I know I've got something to bring. What exactly is it? And a while back, I took a class with some people who said that there's things that you do as automatically as breathing. Everybody has something that you do as automatically as breathing. It's part of how you're wired. And a lot of us don't value it because we feel like we have to work hard for things to really have any value to them. And I'm like, I know, I work hard. I worked hard in school and I got straight A's and that has value. But it's like, okay, so that may be true, but what else do I bring? What am I bringing to everything? Just automatically because it's part of how I'm wired. And with their help, I figured out that play, creativity, and community are all things I just kind of automatically do. I worked at a computer software company and I was figuring out ways to bring in magnetic poetry and coming up with fun taglines to help with the marketing department. And I love to play and be creative. It's just what I do. So yeah, I was trying to figure out what exactly appeals to me so much about the creativity and why this matters to me so much and why I want to bring it to everybody. And and I realized that it feels like creativity opens up possibility. Creativity helps people get unstuck. It helps people procrastinate less. It helps people get out of perfectionism and into the what happens if I try this? Because it's really hard to do both what happens if I try this and it has to be perfect at the same time. You can sort of jog yourself out of the perfectionism by moving into that curiosity. So the curiosity and the playfulness and the expansiveness of creativity just reminded me of WD-40. It gets you unstuck and it lubes things up and it gives you more possibility. So I came up with creativity is WD-40 for the soul.
Oh, I love that. Right, because when things get stuck, like the door jams, right?
Yep.
WD-40 to the rescue. So, if I'm feeling stuck or if you're feeling stuck, right? So, what is that WD-40 element? And that could be creativity, doing something creative.
Yes.
Playing. Awesome. So, what's your favorite game to play?
Ooh, I don't think I have a favorite. So you've been coming to my creativity club on Thursdays. We do different games there all the time, and they're all fun. Should we think we should try the excuses game?
Sure. How many excuses can we come up with?
Yeah.
A minute?
Yeah. And this is something that I would totally love to have people listening jump in the chat. Type in some whatever excuses you come up with, just for about anything.
Oh yeah, good idea. Yes. So I put the chat over here. So we'll see your comments popping in. So please blow up our chat. How many excuses can you come up with? Ready? So hold on one second. Let me just type in the question. How many excuses can you come up with? Can you come up with? So
Right?
this will be on the screen. And I've got a handy dandy minute timer here. So on the count of 3, we're going to flip it and we're just going to go for it. Okay. So how many excuses can I come up with to not do something? Is that what we're doing?
Just excuses for about anything.
Excuses for about anything. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Did you see the traffic? Oh my gosh.
My socks are wet.
I spilled my drink on it.
Oh, I don't know. The cheese was moldy.
Oh man, I overslept. Didn't hear that alarm go.
I didn't know that you had to plug it in.
Did you see the size of that bird? I didn't know birds came that big. Oh my gosh.
I had to stop for the possum crossing the road. Oh, look, Imani's jumping in. It's not perfect enough. It won't be good enough. Oh,
Yeah,
aha.
I don't have time. It's a
I
big
don't-
one.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to.
My head hurts.
I'm so tired.
I
Fine.
need a 4-hour nap from this nap. And one more.
Um, the dog ate my homework.
Classic. Awesome. Thank you, Imani. Thank you, Braden, for jumping in and playing along. That was super fun to see that come through. So thank you so much. And it got us laughing. And I'm, a laughter yoga professional. I've got certification in it, and I can say it. And so there's something magical about laughing for no reason at all. And that too can also open up some creative channels because you're getting oxygen to your brain.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Braden says, ha. Thank you, Braden. That was a lot of fun to play with you and be interactive, right? This is what we want. We want interaction here in the chat.
Absolutely.
So this is something that, I want to give a shout out to Braden too, because he has been a wonderful colleague of both of ours on LinkedIn. And Braden, I just want to say that, I came across your post the other day and it was just so brilliant. And it was about having an artist date. And it's like an hour of just festive exploration that you do for yourself, like totally fun and creative. And I think you learned this from Julia Cameron, and she's the author of that book, The Artist's Way. So how many of you, let us know in the chat, how many of you have heard of this book, have studied the book or applied some of the principles in this book? But, Braden's post is all about having that date and why it was beneficial for business leaders, just to maybe have some time to innovate and stepping away from the day-to-day, the humdrum of the office and getting some new perspective. So, when I read this post, I immediately thought of you, Tal, and like, oh, that's so cool because I never thought about that way, but like my artist date is coming to the creativity club that you have on Thursdays. And it's a chance for me to just like kind of cut loose without any sort of expectations. I don't have to get a grade. I don't have to get like a mark or a score.
No grades. I always say you can't do it wrong because we're just playing. We're just exploring and being creative and having fun. There's no right and there's no wrong. It's just a chance to try things. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it's a lovely thing to like, a lot of people think that they're not creative because they don't have that bolt of lightning strike them that says, poof, here's your new idea. But one of the things that that's not my experience of creativity. That my experience of creativity is much more that there's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of dots in our heads that we can connect in different ways. And the more dots we have, the more interesting things we can make by connecting those dots. And having an artist's date is a great way to bring in more of these dots to connect. So maybe you don't know anything about sculpture, but you start looking at some sculpture and then you think, well, how can I apply what I've just seen about the sculpture to this other thing over here, which is something totally different? And, start getting like different perspectives and different things to connect. Sometimes I'm the most creative when I have like really narrow parameters. Like I have to use this dot and I have to use this dot. What else can I can I do for this thing? Have I told you about my Halloween costumes?
No, this is new information.
So when I go somebody says you can dress up for anything you want for Halloween, we all have a tendency to sort of go, which? Oh, ghosts, it's the things that we're the most familiar with because it's just anything you want is such a vast category. But when my friends said, okay, we are having a theme Halloween party, and the theme is deities and demigods. Suddenly, I had to work within much narrower scope. And I ended up going that year as the parking goddess. I wore a gray robe with a dotted yellow line down the middle and a parking meter staff. And I had the best parking karma. She really liked that tribute. And my husband went as 3 cheers for the sun god, rah, rah, rah. It was like this sun god Egyptian cheerleader mashup. So because we had this limitation to work within, our imaginations were able to just like open up so much more. So having this kind of input and sort of limit, like, here's a dot and here's a dot, and how can you connect these two things in an interesting way, can be a really powerful way to get something new.
Excellent. And something that you talk a lot about too is creating space, a creative, a community and a safe space in which we can explore creativity. Can you share more about that? Because I think that's really unique about how you set up the Creativity Club.
Yeah, well, it's hard to be creative if you are in an environment where you always feel like you have to watch your back, or you're always afraid of being judged. You need some psychological safety in order to be able to allow that creativity to really come out. And so it's important to me that Creativity Club is a place where people can feel safe trying things, where there's not going to be any judgment and there's not going to be any grades, and there's you can't do it wrong, and just to give people a safe place to take a creative risk. Because we need to practice taking that creative risk in a safe space before we can take it out into the world, where there may be more judgments around things, and it may be a little harder to bring up your creative ideas. But the world needs some creative ideas right now. We've got some big issues going on, and if we don't have some new thinking, we're not going to be able to solve them. So we need to be able to bring this creative thinking into real world problems. But we need a safe space to be able to practice before we can do that. So it's why I make this a safe place to try stuff and just stretch those creativity muscles.
I love it. That's awesome. And Braden is popping on here. He says convergent thinking. Is that in reference to the dot here and the dot here and combining them together?
Yeah. When you're doing brainstorming, the first part is divergent thinking. So what are all the different possibilities? And then even more possibilities. And how can you go spread wide and come up with the biggest range of what things could be? But you can't actually do all of those things. And so then the convergent thinking is bringing it back more narrow to be able to actually figure out which one you want to do. So the fun part about brainstorming about Halloween costumes, for example, is, what are all the deities and demigods that I could be or do or dress up as, and then figuring out what I actually want to do and narrowing in and coming up with all the details for that particular costume. So that's where it's convergent.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Braden, for jumping on, Mr. Smarty Pants. And that's actually a precursor to our next week's episode. We're going to be exploring divergent and convergent thinking. So that was just a little snippet of explanation right there. And yes, the world does need creativity and supportive creative partners for these ideas to nourish and grow. And I love what you said, Talia, about having that space to take a creative risk. I mean, this alone is a creative risk right here. Working with technology, I'm excited to have this technology, right? I'm excited for these platforms that have come out. I mean, maybe they've already been in existence, but they've been refined so that way we can do these things like live stream productions, build communities, and have these discussions, etc. But it's also a little bit of a creative risk because, okay, well, who's gonna watch it? Will I get followers? How many views do I need? And you can get, I think, stuck, right? Like focusing on that aspect versus just, okay, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to see where it goes, let it ride, and just find people that's going to have fun with me and willing to experiment.
That's the difference between the perfectionism and the creativity. It has to be perfect before I can start. if it's live, you don't know if it's going to be perfect or not. I mean, that's the whole risk of doing something live, is that you don't know what's going to happen. But to approach it with this attitude of let's try it and see how it goes, it can be fun. It can be creative and exploratory, and who knows what's going to happen. It could be amazing. It has, being live has an energy that being recorded doesn't have. So as long as you can, set aside that what if it's not perfect and allow it to be what it is, two human beings connecting in a creative and fun way, it's all good.
It is all good. So I want to know any procrastinators out there, because I'm a former procrastinator. Well, actually, maybe like I'm still in process.
Well, I have coached so many people around procrastination. I still procrastinate. I mean, it happens, but at least, I have tools to address it when I see it happening. And creativity is one of the tools that I use to get things moving again, especially around perfectionism.
Yeah, because I think for a long, and this will tie in, because Talia's background is also, she's a coach to end procrastination. Okay, so if you're a procrastinator out there, definitely connect with Talia and get to learn more about what she offers. So for the longest time, I was a perfectionist. I think maybe I still am, but and it interfered because of that perfectionism. It led me to procrastination, and I would make up excuses. I would just make up excuses. Go, no, I need to, have it done perfectly right. If it's not done right the first time, it's not worth doing at all. I had to make up all these excuses, and I had to be like Little Miss Perfect. That was kind of like my persona in school, right? And I think I just have this facade, like, oh, like she looks like she has it all together, but they don't know. Like I'm up like until midnight trying to perfect the perfect email, or getting like the perfect message out there, and being really attention oriented, like maybe too detail oriented, getting the stuff done right. And so I'm a recovering procrastinator, because I find that, let me just do the best I can. And something you taught me recently is that it's a living product, right? It's living, it's ongoing. I can go back, it's not set in stone. I can go back and tweak and modify as, it evolves. And I really appreciate that feedback that you gave me.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's actually really normal to want things to be perfect. I mean, we evolved to care about what other people think about what we do and who we are and what we create, because at one point in time, the approval of the tribe was what kept us alive. So this is a survival level instinct to care about what other people think about what you're doing. So it is like gut level. It's just a visceral feeling that, oh my God, if I'm not perfect, I'm going to get kicked out. It's totally normal and understandable. It's just that nobody gets kicked out for things not being perfect. Like this is a fear that's been amped up. Like it's a survival level fear around things that are not survival level issues. And so finding ways to quiet that fear, to be able to talk to the voice in your head that's like shouting and saying, watch out, watch out, watch out, to be able to say, okay, like what's going on that you're so concerned about? Like, let's figure out what you're afraid of and what you're trying to protect me from. Make sure I'm protected. Thank you for your help. You can go now.
You can go now.
I really find that the gremlins in my head that are chattering at me get a lot quieter when I listen to them. Like if I ignore them, I am not listening. Then they start shouting so that they make sure they're heard. But if I listen and pay attention and say, okay, I'm taking this into consideration, I appreciate the advice, they get a lot quieter. So so I never blame anybody for perfectionism or procrastination. These are like totally normal human things. And just, how can we work with that? Work with the way our brains are wired to quiet that down a little bit so that we can get stuff done.
That's amazing, Talia. Thank you. Braden here, he says procrastination is often our mind's way of trying to manage stress. It can be good, but like anything good, done too much is not good.
Yeah.
So thank you, Braden. Thank you for that.
And of course, done is better than perfect.
Yes, and something also I've come to like accept is just get the MVP out there. You know, the minimum viable product.
Right. And then as you learn more and you get feedback, you can change it to be better, closer to what you want it to be. But sometimes you just have to start with where you are.
So what do you say? Because I would use this excuse like, "Oh, I work better under pressure. Like I like the adrenaline rush." You know,
Yeah.
so is that a good tactic, or is that just like a made up excuse?
I would call it a tactic.
Eight.
I I read a book about, I think it was called Your Brain at Work. And one of the things that he says in the book is that, sometimes we need that extra adrenaline to get us moving. That sometimes that is what it takes to be able to do a thing. So, it's there's some challenges to it in that you end up actually against a deadline, which means you might not have time to revise, or you might not have time to get feedback before you have to submit. Like, there's consequences to using it, but sometimes that is what we need to have that deadline to push us to get that thing done. So, it is a way to cope with procrastination. I would say probably don't have that be your only tool.
Excellent.
But I think it's a fine tool to have in your toolbox.
Well, that brings to mind something else that I've come across where it's like, if you think you've got 3 hours, like you'll you'll max out the 3 hours. Like you actually take maybe 3 hours and longer to get something done. But even though you're given 3 hours, if you tell yourself, hey, like I've got 30 minutes and see what you can accomplish in 30 minutes, so that could be another way of working around that tactic.
I have often felt that tasks expand to fill the amount of time available.
Yes, you said it so eloquently. Yes, tasks will take up the time.
Yeah. So if you compress the amount of time that you give them, you may be able to get them done faster. But yeah, they expand.
And what do you think about timing as sort of like a baseline for how you do in certain things? Like how long does it take you to shower? How long does it take you to make this dinner or put together that proposal? Do you recommend like timing these tasks so we know like our baseline for it?
I have found it helpful to know how long it takes me to shower and get dressed, because that way, if I have to get someplace early, I can say, okay, this is how early I have to wake up in order to be able to, like, I don't know how long it takes me to shower and get dressed, then I might not leave myself enough time, and then I might not make it to this thing I have to do. So, but I wouldn't go overboard with that personally. I mean, everybody's going to be different on this. Some people are going to find it really fascinating to time everything. I find that I want like a rough estimate, and that's enough.
Mm.
After that, I don't want to have to spend the time and energy being more precise, because I don't feel like it would give me more. But it's going to be different. Different people have different relationship to time and schedules and things. So I don't know what to say.
I don't know. That's good. I appreciate that input on that too. Hopefully, it's helping all of you out there that are watching and listening. And if you're watching this on replay, feel free to continue the conversation, hashtag replay, and continue jumping into the comments there. And one thing we forgot to talk about is allowing time for ideas to simmer.
Here we are at the end of our time, and we're trying to talk about leaving time. How did that happen?
So, what are your comments on that? Because I think I recently had an experience with you where I felt like, okay, like, why did I wait till last minute? And you pointed out that I really hadn't, that I was actually like thinking about it in the back of my mind and, even
Yes,
in little snippets. And that led to, being able to get things done.
I absolutely think that ideas take time. They need time to simmer on the back burner, and that when we are putting things off, sometimes what we're doing is actually giving ourselves time to think about it, sort of not focused thinking, just sort of back of your head thinking, where things can sort of just simmer away until they're cooked, and then you can work on them some more. So I feel like you didn't waste time. You were actually thinking about what you wanted to do. And if you jump in too soon without spending that time letting things simmer, then you might not know what you want to say. It's time to write things down. But if you let things have that time, you've done some of the work already by letting that just percolate there in the back. I'm actually a really big fan of taking time to let your mind wander and just allow thoughts to come, whatever comes. Because it's amazing how much wisdom we can pull out of ourselves when we're not trying too hard. When we just allow ourselves to just be. And our society has a very high emphasis on being busy and productive. And people don't see the wool gathering as being productive, but it is. Same with integration. When you come up with new ideas and you're trying to integrate them back into your life, that can look like not doing anything, but it's actually vitally important to spend that time allowing the integration to happen. Otherwise, the new ideas just sort of get brushed off of you and they don't sink in. So, it doesn't might not look productive. I've certainly had my husband come up by and say, "You don't look like you're busy."
It's all up here. That's what I tell my husband. It's all up here. It's all up here. He goes, write it down. Why do you make so much stress for yourself by keeping it all up here?
Sometimes it's stressful to keep it up there, and sometimes it's just how it grows. You can't, when you plant a seed, you can't rush how quickly it grows.
Indeed.
It just needs time to
Awesome.
grow up.
Exactly. Well, we are coming up to the end of our show. This has been so fun, Talia. It's so enlightening to talk to you about this. And, stay tuned. So stay tuned. We'll be coming back to you every week on Wednesdays at this time slot, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, for the month of May. So you can dive deep into these creative topics and beat out that procrastination. And we invite you to join us on Thursday. So this Thursday, tomorrow, right, at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. if you're in Pacific time like Talia, is our creativity club. And you can't do it wrong. So we invite you to just jump in. The links are below. So you can't miss it. tinyurl.com/Talia Creativity Club. It is case sensitive, but that will take you to the Eventbrite registration page, and you can choose the date they'd like to come by and drop in. And we'd love to see you.
Honestly, once you're on my mailing list, you don't have to pick a date. I'll just send you the link every week so that you can come in anytime that it fits into your schedule. We'd love to come and have you play with us.
Yes, come play with us. That means you, Braden. Thank you, Braden, for tuning in and watching this. Thank you, Imani, all the way in Atlanta, watching this as well, too. We so appreciate you guys' support and promoting us out. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. That was so fun. So, yes, if you enjoy that game of the 1 minute excuses, we actually play a longer version called the 108 excuses. So that is something that you can experience in Creativity Club, the Excuse Game, and many, many others. So come join us tomorrow. See you then.
All right.
Bye, everyone.